All right, we are live. What's up, everyone? I'm live on YouTube right now. I'm also live on IG. As with everything, trying to funnel you guys to YouTube. So head over to YouTube if you're on IG. The link is in my story. And sorry, I just got back from the gym. It's kind of crazy day today. So went to the gym. I missed a day of working out. So kind of my split right now is I'm doing like an upper lower variation. First 2 days are upper lower power. So I'm focusing more on strength and power. And then the last 2 days are more hypertrophy. So low reps, a little bit lighter weight, a little bit more volume. So I was doing some, and today being Saturday, I was doing both upper and body. So I was kind of doing a full body workout. I was doing some deadlifts and relatively not a ton of weight. I think it was like 275, but for me, that's not too much. Doing some deadlifts and I was doing the reps a little bit, probably too fast and not really watching my form. And yeah, I went up and I heard a little bit of a pop in my lower back, which is not good whatsoever. And it hurt for the first like couple minutes. Just yeah, it was not good. And I thought, yeah, I definitely like did something to it. But then I don't know if it's adrenaline or whatever. After time, it started loosening up, not as tight, didn't hurt as much. And now I've been icing it since I've gotten back and kind of bracing it as well. So I kind of have it braced right now as I'm sitting in my chair, but hopefully nothing's too bad because hearing a pop anytime with your body is not good. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. So that was an interesting day today. Of course, I did finish my workout. Don't worry, like I wasn't doing any like hip back exercises after that. I just did some upper body. So hopefully things are all good, but we'll see. Cross my fingers. But yeah, with that, and that was kind of my day so far. But today I wanted to talk. Obviously, the topic is the future of crypto and blockchain. There's been recent events in this past week that have been pretty crazy. The SEC going after the big giant central exchanges of Binance and Coinbase via litigation. So this is really interesting. I just want to talk about kind of like the nature of what's going on and maybe some takeaways from it as well. And kind of where crypto and where blockchain kind of goes from here. And I think it can go a couple different directions. So we'll see. And we'll talk about that at the end. But kind of very similar to when I talked about the Silicon Bank failure and crisis, the banking crisis. It's kind of going to be more a little bit of that style live today. So a little bit more informative. Not a ton of like prescriptive, like here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do. And of course, I am not a financial advisor, so probably add a disclaimer definitely at the end of this show. I don't know why my other computer is kind of bugging out right now, but disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not investment advisor. I'm not a CPA or accountant. I'm no investing professional. So all this information is strictly for entertainment purposes, informational purposes, and investing, especially in crypto, is risky. And so don't take any of my advice as investing advice. So this past week, starting with June 5th, I believe, was I want to say a Tuesday or Wednesday. Let's see. June 5th was a Monday, actually. So on Monday, the SEC came out and specifically SEC and Gary Gensler. So Gary Gensler is the chair of the SEC. If you're not familiar with what the SEC is, the SEC stands for Securities and Exchange Commission for the U.S. government. They're a U.S. government agency that regulates investments and investment activities as well as investment firms. So basically their job is to protect the average consumer from fraud, from misleading information and things that would potentially lead the investor to lose a lot of money with the benefit of the investment firm. So that's basically what they do. So they regulate all of those spaces. They say what's okay, what's not okay when it comes to the stock market, when it comes to anything investing wise. And they specifically focus on obviously securities. So when you think of a security, you can think of like a stock, of some sort, a share of Tesla, a share of Apple. And then there's actually another agency I will briefly mention. It's called the CFTC. So that's the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission. So they're very similar to what the SEC does. Instead of securities, they focus on what's called commodities and futures, which, if you don't know what that is, go ahead and see and check out my 25 different types of investment vehicles. I talk about what commodities and futures are. So I will briefly mention that. But essentially, that's kind of the nature that's happening. And crypto has been really big over the past couple of years, specifically in the past like 4 years. Now, kind of the new shiny object is AI, but the government is definitely taking a hammer, specifically Gary Gensler, against a lot of crypto exchanges. And this isn't necessarily the first one. I was going to dig a little bit deeper, but I've watched I did a good amount of research last night in the past week, but the SEC, this isn't like the first people they're going after when it comes to suing and litigation and taking down. And according to the crypto community, they're basically like trying to take down these big exchanges. But in the eyes of the SEC, they think they're kind of doing this holy thing that they're protecting investors. Whether or not they actually are, and they're trying to just fill out their own agenda, that's debatable. That's arguable. But they've been doing this for a long time. So they've done it with smaller exchanges, smaller trading platforms, and then now they're kind of attacking the big guys, the big boys. And you've definitely seen it throughout the crypto community. And once I kind of go into takeaways, we'll kind of look at the dates of these lawsuits and kind of the price of crypto. It's definitely affecting the market for sure, but I think it's going to be a temporary effect. So I'll start off with Binance because that was the first one. That was on Monday. So I actually have the actual SEC filing right here. So this was June 5th, 2023. SEC files 13 charges against Binance entities and founder Changpeng Zhao, which for short, if you don't know, CZ, that's his name. So charges include operating unregistered exchanges, broker-dealers, and clearing agencies misrepresenting trading controls and oversight on the Binance.us platform, and the unregistered offer and sale of securities. So there's a lot kind of bundled up into this, and I'm not going to go over everything. I'll put this in the description for anyone that's interested to check it out. But 13 accounts is a lot. Kind of the basis of what they're kind of suing them for. Oh, a lot of things, but what they said was, through 13 charges, we allege that Zhao, the CEO, CZ, and Binance entities engaged in an extensive web of deception, conflict of interest, lack of closure, and calculated evasion of the law. And this is according to Gary Gensler and the SEC. So I think that's really interesting. So kind of the background of this, there's been a lot of controversial, kind of shady stuff that Binance has been doing over the past several years. Binance is actually the largest crypto exchange in the world. They are very big internationally. They're obviously very big in the US. I think Coinbase, strictly US, I think is bigger as far as like AUM or locked, what's it called? Total value locked, TVL or something like that, when it comes to just within the United States. Binance, but internationally, is by far more. So they've been doing some shady stuff over the years. The likes of CZ, the CEO, encouraging customers to use VPNs, kind of not necessarily purposely breaking the law, but because for a long time, you could not use Binance in the US because of regulation. There were certain things they were doing that weren't really compliant with US law when it comes to investing, especially in cryptocurrency. So people would use these VPNs basically to make it seem like they're not accessing it from the United States, they're accessing it from somewhere internationally where those US laws aren't binding and don't take into effect. So that's one thing. Also, their involvement with FTX. Everyone knows what FTX is, and Sam Bankman-Fried, the giant crypto central exchange that collapsed because they're commingling assets. They're sending all customer assets to their sister company and doing crazy, sketchy trades with it. And yeah, essentially, people thought their money was in FTX, but it actually wasn't. So the collapse of that, and Binance didn't really have direct link with FTX, but they're in talks with FTX. And actually, if you look at the structure of how Binance, from a business model and also an entity structure, it's very similar to FTX. So it kind of makes sense that the SEC is wanting to crack down, making sure another FTX doesn't happen. So, for example, for a long time, FTX didn't even have a headquarters. I know their main headquarters were like the Bahamas, but same with Binance. Technically, I don't think they really even have headquarters. So that is very troubling for someone like the US government who's trying to regulate these things, making sure the same thing doesn't happen to FTX, because a lot of the structure and a lot of the business operations is very similar to FTX. So it makes sense that the SEC wants to investigate this. Whether or not suing them is the best way to doing that, I'm not exactly sure, but nonetheless, I think on a grand scale, kind of long-term looking, I think it's kind of a good thing, because it eventually gets laws put in place. So as I was doing some research, some other things I noted that, like I said, Binance was originally an international entity and didn't really focus too much on the US, but then they set up Binance.us to be a little bit more compliant with the US. And that way customers didn't have to use VPNs and all that. But according to Gary Gensler, it was kind of used as a decoy to distract US lawmakers, allowing the rest of Binance to kind of do whatever they want, still with the encouraging of customer using VPN so they can access the full Binance capabilities. And Gary was also saying, so a big part of this was not just Binance, the entity, their business model, but part of this litigation, I think it's somewhere in here. I forgot I was still sharing my screen. Maybe it's not in there. Okay. It's not, so I'm going to go back to the main camera. But a part of this lawsuit between the SEC and Binance was there was a number of coins that were being sold on Binance. And then, as we see the next day when the SEC sues Coinbase, Coinbase also promotes the trading of these certain coins and tokens. The SEC, they claimed certain coins are securities. The coins in question include Binance's BNB token, which is their native token. So if you think of the BNB block chain, that's the native token if you're thinking of Ethereum and ETH. So BNB's token, the exchange's stablecoin, BUSD, and 10 other tokens, including Solana, which is very popular, Cardano, Polygon, Filecoin, Cosmos Hub, Sandbox, Decentraland, Algorand, Axie Infinity, and Cody. So a number of them that the government deems they were securities. In order to be able to sell securities, trade securities, they need to be registered under security, which is kind of ironic because there was no way to know, one, these were securities, two, there's no way for these central exchanges, Binance, Coinbase, a couple of the other ones, there's no way that they could actually register and be compliant in the first place. So I think it's kind of funny. I think there's this quote. It's like basically they set them up to do the impossible because there's no way to, one, register Coinbase and Binance as appropriate entities to go about their typical operational business. And then two, the assets they were trading, so these cryptocurrencies, there's no way to register them as securities in the first place. So it's kind of the chicken before the egg dilemma. SEC saying you need to file them as securities or else what you're doing is illegal, but there's no way to register them as securities before this. So yeah, I don't think it's, from the average perspective, I don't think it's great to punish someone for not doing something that wasn't even possible in the first place. So like I said, I'm sure everyone was very familiar with those tokens. They're used very a lot. Funny story with Solana. So when I was doing my last summer of sales in Memphis, that was in 2021. One of the guys in my apartment, he was talking to some guy who was kind of interested in crypto, and this was when crypto was a little bit. At least Solana was very early on, and it was around $30 at that point. And this was before everything blew up with crypto, um, like the huge bull market. So he recommended, like, hey, to my friend, hey, you should probably buy some Solana. I think it's gonna do pretty well. And I looked into it, and at that point, I was investing in just like the two main ones, ETH and uh, Bitcoin. So I looked at Solana, looked at the technology. It was like kind of cool, interesting, cool. So it was like kind of a Ethereum alternative. It's a lot more efficient than Ethereum. It can process a lot more transactions than Ethereum because Ethereum is generally known to be very inefficient and very expensive to do transactions on. So Solana was kind of the solution for that. And it's crazy. Like literally, I think like 6 months later, went from $30 to like $250. So I did not get in at $30. I probably got in definitely a lot higher than that. So I didn't reap the whole benefit, but if I did, man, I would have made a ton of money. So looking back on it, $30, probably bought some Solana, would have been worth it for me. So worst case scenario goes to zero. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent on Solana, but Cardano, Polygon, I'm actually super big on Polygon right now. I'm staking a decent amount of Polygon, but all those are supposedly deemed as securities, and to what extent and like how they actually figure that out, not sure, but I think it's really interesting that they deemed that. Um, and kind of going along that, there was kind of during this whole thing, there's always like CFTC, so the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, they're having their meetings and meeting about stuff. And the chair of the CFTC actually, there's a quote from him that said he mentioned Ethereum, because if you think of Ethereum and Solana and Cardano and Polygon, like these are all very similar assets and tokens. He deemed Ethereum being a commodity. So if it's a commodity, then it doesn't have to abide by the securities laws. So it's interesting that the chair said that, and then the SEC chair Gary Gensler didn't have any comment, couldn't answer it, wouldn't answer it, and then suddenly he's saying a lot of these tokens are securities, even though they in their nature they're very similar, if not more similar to Ethereum, which is deemed a commodity. So it's very interesting. I think the government agencies are kind of all mixed up. They don't know what to do, and this is kind of, I guess, their solution to it. And then lastly, what I want to like just highlight with last thing about Binance is I was hearing the chair Gary Gensler is talking on Bloomberg about kind of these lawsuits, specifically Binance, and he, in his mind, he thinks these crypto companies are thwarting investor protection and rights and trying to evade the law. Which, I mean, to an extent, probably true because I mean, all these companies are trying to make money and trying to implement this technology at a mass scale, and there might be some ways where they're not necessarily following the law, nor do they want to. But actually, if you hear the chief legal officers and kind of their intent, that is that they actually want the SEC and the government to come out with these laws so they can be compliant. Because the more they're compliant. And their main goal is kind of to offer these products and services and this technology from this blockchain technology to the average consumer, the average retail investor. So the faster they can get laws and legislation in place to be compliant, then they can be compliant and then offer what is compliant to retail investors. So I thought that was really interesting. It seems like Gary is very against crypto for some reason, which there can be a whole conspiracy theory about the government's involvement with the banks, and banks aren't keen and a fan of crypto because, or blockchain technology, because they can eat in the next like 50 years, it could totally disrupt the whole banking industry, even maybe sooner than that, which is actually interesting because a lot of these banks say they're not working on crypto projects or anything, but they 100% have teams that are working that on their own blockchain technology and their own exchanges on the side. Like I guarantee you. So that's Binance. kind of the takeaways from that is the main thing, SEC, they sued them because their their whole business entity structure and business model is very similar to FTX. So they didn't want to have another FTX happen. And then, of course, with these tokens as well, mentioning that they're securities and therefore their trading of them with not them not being registered with the SEC is illegal. So that's Binance. All right, Coinbase was literally the very next day. So Binance happened on a Monday, June 5th. Coinbase happened on a Tuesday, June 6th. So let's go ahead and hop into this is Coinbase's one. So the SEC charges Coinbase for operating as unregistered securities exchange. So very similar to Binance because they're also trading the Solana, Cardano, Polygon, all of these different tokens. Coinbase was also charged for unregistered offer and sale of securities in connection with its staking as a service program. So for those of you who are not familiar with staking, like I said, check out my 25 different investment vehicles that live, and you can learn about staking and what staking is. But from a general sense, staking is, depending what network you're on, it's basically putting up a certain amount of some sort of token in order for the whole blockchain and the transactions to be put on the ledgers and essentially for the whole system to work. And in return, you put up staking, allows people to upload and confirm transactions on the blockchain ledger. And in return, you get some sort of reward for putting up um, your tokens. So think of it almost as like, all right, it's like I'm earning interest on my crypto. And that's the cool thing is you earn a percentage or you earn rewards from your crypto. And the cool thing, and the main reason why people stake, it's like you're putting your crypto to work, but it's not like just straight cash, because cash, the value of the dollar only incrementally goes up and down. But with crypto, the value of crypto can go up and down. So if you're staking it and you're earning more crypto, it's not a stable coin, it's crypto, or it's a token such as Ethereum or Polygon or Wrapped Bitcoin. Then if the price goes up on it, then you can actually even make exponentially more money on that. So that's why people stake. And Coinbase offers that program. So I stake Ethereum through Coinbase. They do it with any of the tokens. If you are a Coinbase user and it says there's some sort of APY interest that you can earn, that they're essentially you're staking that, and you can earn a percentage in rewards for that specific token by holding it. So yeah, unregistered exchange broker and clearing agency, very similar to Binance. Unregistered offer and sale in connection with staking as a service program. So a little bit different, but a lot of the similar stuff with Coinbase. So I'll go ahead and main camera. But the interesting thing with Coinbase was I actually watched an interview with. I'm a big fan of this channel called Bankless. They're everything crypto and blockchain, and they actually got an interview with the chief legal officer. His name's Paul Grewal or something like that. I might have butchered his name. But they interviewed him for like 20 minutes and kind of got his take on it, which is interesting. They interviewed him, I'd say like a month before, kind of on legislation, kind of where they see things going and the potential for a lawsuit. So it's ironic that came back on and the lawsuit was actually happening. They were expecting it essentially. So kind of the first reaction that their chief legal officer said was he was somewhat relieved because they knew this was going to happen and they're kind of hoping it would happen sooner than later, because when you think of the long term picture, they can actually get some sort of clarity, and they are getting clarity on what the government wants in terms of regulation and compliance from these exchanges. The faster they can learn that and know that, become compliant, the faster they can become compliant, and the faster the average retail investor can be comfortable with using these central exchanges. So he was saying they were working in the dark, not knowing what the SEC wanted from them compliance wise. This lawsuit, even though it's going to take resources and take time, it might take months, years, who knows. It'll provide clear insight on what digital assets are, and two, how they're going to be regulated. So it's kind of a relief for them, which is kind of funny to think when you think of if you're getting sued, it's not necessarily a relief, but in their case, because they want to be as compliant as possible so they can run their business effectively without any future problems, then this is actually a pretty good thing for them. And he was the one that mentioned, the chair of the CFTC mentioning Ethereum was a commodity, not a security. Gensler still hasn't said anything about that, so we find that kind of interesting. That ETH is, I guess, a commodity, but what makes Solana, Cardano, Polygon, all these other alt tokens not commodities and securities instead. Yeah, and there's not like a ton of different things to point out on the Coinbase case, just because it is very similar to the Binance one. A little bit different. Their structure is a little bit different. I'm pretty sure they have a headquarters, so not as much as the shady stuff as Binance was doing, but more of the, all right, these tokens are securities. They're not registered as securities. You're not registered as a securities exchange. So a lot of that stuff. And then ultimately, Chief Legal Officer said this is ultimately a good thing. And moderate regulation will lead to the future of crypto. So I agree. I think moderate regulation is a very good thing for crypto. And this is kind of going into a little bit of my takeaways. But because if there's no regulation, then there can be no mass adoption to, one, retail investors, two, institutional investors. Because, I mean, all these big banks and these big investment firms are investing in crypto, but kind of through roundabout ways, just because they have to follow laws as well. They can't invest in stuff that aren't registered as securities, that are supposed to be registered as securities, or else they won't be compliant themselves. So they're just waiting for regulation to happen. Then they're going to pour a bunch of assets, trillions and trillions of dollars into it. So, and then that will eventually bump up the price and really extend the longevity and establish like crypto is here to stay. And I already think that already. So I'm bullish on it. And in other news, it was interesting. I saw yesterday that Robinhood, because in Robinhood you can trade like crypto and stuff like that, they actually dropped those assets that I talked about. So Solana, Cardano, Polygon, all of those that were deemed securities. They dropped those. So you can no longer buy them. And then two, I believe I think it's June 27th, if you're still holding it, if you haven't sold it yet, you'll automatically get liquidated and like you won't be holding them and that anymore in your Robinhood account. So I'm not sure if there's any way where you can transfer it to a different wallet if you're holding crypto in Robinhood. But yeah, I guess my advice would, if I can try to move it, move it. If not, I mean, I'm not a big fan of holding crypto in Robinhood just because it's not like a crypto exchange per se. I know they're trying to dip their toes into it, but I think other exchanges are a way better option. So that's just not other news. I guess my takeaways from this, like I said, government, I guess, has taken this litigation approach since the beginning. I mean, they've been doing this with smaller exchanges and firms. So it was going to happen that they're going to attack the big guys. So now they're taking a shot at the two biggest exchanges in the world. And this is an interesting point that I've discussed myself, and then I've heard other people discuss, but this could potentially, just being frank, this could potentially be the end of central exchanges, and it will drastically change the crypto industry and how it works right now. Just because a lot of these central exchanges provide an on-ramping method and way to have the average person get access to crypto and buy crypto and trade crypto and stuff like that. Obviously, there are other ways where you can do it, but they're a little bit more complicated that the average person, either one, won't take the time to learn. Two, it's actually, if you don't know what you're doing, you can lose your money that you're trying to invest. Send it to the wrong wallet, you do the protocol wrong, you're not following the right instructions, then you can easily lose hundreds, thousands of dollars just by careless mistakes. So that's a big thing. But, and I thought this was an interesting point that I've heard someone else mention as well, but the decentral exchanges, the DEXs, and the crypto industry will continue to survive. Like, I think no matter what, they will survive. Whether or not they might be as viable, and things will change, and people's access to buy, sell, trade crypto will change, I think it will survive. So those are a couple of my takeaways. I'm trying to think as well. Oh yeah, I wanted to take a look at cool, market cap, the price of crypto since kind of this past week and the past week's events. So let's take a look at Bitcoin, and it's interesting because I don't think Bitcoin and Ethereum took actually that's today. So let's say 7 days. All right, so this was 646465 whenever the lawsuit came out. Boom. It dropped from 26K to 25K, which to be honest, that's not like a drastic change. Like over the past 7 days, it's down 5%, which honestly for crypto is like kind of like every other day type of a thing. And then you see it shoot back up and then come down. So honestly, not a big hit. I mean, if we look at Ethereum too, let's look at this for the past 7 days. Same thing. Day of the lawsuit, boom, drops down from 1800. It didn't even drop down that much. It's down seven. It's actually down a lot more this past, like yesterday and today, than it has been when the lawsuits came out. It actually bumped back up. So I think initially people were kind of scared about it, started selling some off, and then after a while, people started buying some again. But I wanted to take a look at some of these altcoins. So if you think of like Solana, Cardano, I think even there's litigation against XRP as well. I think that's been happening for a while. So let's look at Cardano. All right, not bad, not bad. But look, it's just like it's kind of tanked a ton in the past 7 days, almost 30% down. That is not good. So a lot of these altcoins, Cardano. Let's look at Solana. Let's look at Polygon as well. Yeah, man, even Solana is down almost 30%. I remember, yeah, it was at like 20 something bucks, and then now it's around like 15. And then let's look at Polygon. Probably the same thing. I mean, one day it's down 20%. Past 7 days, down 30%. So not too great for altcoins. So at least for me, I am a big proponent of just like keeping stuff in the big two, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then having a little bit in some of these altcoins. Um, and obviously, this is like a short term reaction. If you look at the past year, Polygon's actually been doing great. Kind of, it's back down to kind of where it's at. I mean, it's down what in the past year, down almost 1%, which isn't bad. Um, so I think in the long term, if you look out 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I think it will recover. It'll be interesting to see how these lawsuits kind of affect the markets as well. But that's kind of it. What I wanted to comment on today. I always forget to have the YouTube chat. I'm not sure if anyone in the chat has said anything, but I don't think so. So I think we're good. But that's kind of what it is today. Just to inform you guys, I like to study and research a lot of this information. I think it's beneficial for the general public to know as well, and to know from a very simple perspective, a simple way that you can understand, just because the average person, they're not going to look through an SEC filing of a lawsuit and figure out what's going on, nor probably care what's going on. But generally, people care about the general macro economy, how the stock market's doing, how the crypto market's doing, and how it could potentially change in the future. So that's my 2 cents. If you have any more questions about crypto or the stock market or investing in general, leave a comment in the description or shoot me a DM on Instagram for any future lives. And I'll continue doing these. I'll probably do just like main topics. Like I talked about, workout splits the other day. And then before that, I was talking about like patriotism and also, I'm trying to think of, I've done a lot of live streams the past couple of weeks, so it's hard to keep track of a lot of them. But a lot of the main topics like modern dating and like how to increase your income, how to continue to invest intelligently, how to deepen and strengthen your relationships, how to get stronger and fitter in the gym and prevent injuries like myself. Don't hurt your back. And yeah, I need to focus on my form a little bit more. I haven't done deadlifts in a while, so hopefully it's not too serious. But I'll still have those like typical ones, and then every once in a while, when something comes out in the news, such as this, when it regards to relationships, dating, making money, investing, fitness, working out, becoming a captivating guy, then I'll talk about these whenever stuff in the news comes out. So, as with everything, trying to help you guys get stronger, smarter, healthier, wealthier. So go ahead, follow for more streams, follow for more lives, follow for more tips, and I'll